There you go, that's a good one.
Nice.
Oh, nice. That came flying out of a volcano.
Feedback on that?
Yeah, so my impression of the roadmap is it's a really useful package that you put together there. It would really help us in Antarctica and actually doing work in a very tricky place, in a very tough place and dangerous place. Will definitely make it more efficient and actually help us de-risk an operation before we even get down there. It's a whole bunch of tools that you're proposing which I would think would make our lives a lot easier and a lot safer. Biggest area of inefficiency, well, it's spending a lot of time with the planning and the de-risking and the building the roadmap basically on how do we get it done.
Right.
We spend an awful lot of time actually just around the safety, around the risk management and route finding. I mean, we spent an entire season as a bunch of people that just spent one season in Antarctica just driving, finding a safe route for the following season. So I mean, that's not a very efficient process if you think about it. We've got 2 vehicles and 4 or 5 people, and they're just spending 8 weeks driving just to test the route to try and find it. So if you can reduce that in terms of fuel burn, in terms of equipment, you free up equipment, you free up people, you free up money. So yeah, that's an example of what happened this last season. So, yeah. So the shear zone observation, the balloon, that's a very useful, easy to do first off one, because this season again we had an issue with the shear zone. We piggyback off another program, the USAT, and we need to make sure that they've approved the shear zone before we're allowed to drive through it. This season we had 2 examples. We had a medevac, which someone did some pretty serious damage to their thumb. We pumped it full of antibiotics, had trouble stopping the bleeding, and then we said, right, he's the first to fly out of here. Well, 16 days later the weather cleared and he was still sitting there, and that was the first opportunity to move him, and it was because we couldn't drive through the shear zone. So it's a safety thing first of all. Secondly, it was a sample thing. We actually had to, eventually we couldn't fly, so we had to drive our samples out. But we could only do that when the shear zone was open. And because these were time sensitive samples, they were biological samples, they needed to have experiments done, and they're only viable for 48 hours. And so it was only luck that the Americans were driving by with their gear to certify the shear zone for us. So that one constraint already could have, had, some pretty serious consequences for a human and for some science that we couldn't do. So the shear zone tool is a really critical one. That would be, we'll call it low-hanging fruit. I don't like that expression, but for me that would be, the most ambitious one, and that would be, the gold standard is self-driving vehicles that just move our equipment all over the place. I could keep talking about the whole lot of them. They're all very cool, but I think it would be amazing for us to, we've got big plans to do science, but at the moment there's not resistance, it's the wrong word. A lot of people are saying it's very, very ambitious and it's going to be really, really tricky to get to faraway places with all the equipment we need to drag around. So if you can just send the equipment off and then have it get there, that would be, perfect in our world. So yeah. It's a good question really, because it's about time on the ground in Antarctica, so it would buy us more time on the ground. It would also buy us more time here to get on with our day jobs, and so in effect you could probably have more people on site because you can drag more equipment out there, and you may be able to get to more difficult places. I mean, if you could send a vehicle out there and then it prepares the runway for you, that's a no-brainer. Then you can actually just send the vehicle in, or the aircraft, and then fly people in and out. Right now we're planning for getting to a far, far away place in Antarctica. It's about 1,000 something kilometres of driving, and there's resistance. There will be resistance, I know, or reluctance from people to say 1,000 kilometres at 10 kilometres an hour. That's quite a lot of time that I'm spending just driving. It's uncomfortable. It's not a very nice, thing to have to do. And so, yeah, having the vehicles just take everything out there and prepare the place in a way will definitely make our lives more, more efficient. And so, on a different side, we have different ways of operating. So the universities, we have more flexibility than the Crown Research Institutes, and we work with Crown Research Institutes, so CRIs, which have to budget for all of their hours all the time. And so if they're spending 2 hours or 2 weeks in a vehicle, it's not a very efficient use of any researcher's time or anyone's time. So, yeah. Wow. So this is the Ross Ice Shelf. It's about the size of France or Spain, depending on who you speak to. We are there, or sorry, no, we are. Scott Base is here, and this is a spot that I would love to go to, which is at the far other end. And on the way there is what I would like to call certain death. If you're not careful and if you don't have the equipment and you don't plan, you're not going to come back from that drive. And even flying over there, the weather is tricky. It's a foggy place towards the middle to latter half of the season, so flying often isn't an option either. So that's where I think is the next interesting place to go, and it's because we've got an ocean circulation system as a counter-current that flows around Antarctica. I mean, this is the northwest US we're talking about here. It's a huge place. And so the ocean current is the thing that probably will affect the Ross Ice Shelf sooner rather than later, in a negative way. And the Ross Ice Shelf is really, really important because it holds back the West Antarctic ice sheet. And if that goes into the ocean, then sea level starts rising quite quickly. This spot here is probably where the ocean will start entering, or maybe already has started entering underneath the Ross Ice Shelf. And so no one's watching because no one can get there because it's very expensive and it's very tricky. By no one, I mean no humans on the face of the earth. We're not monitoring here unless it's by satellite. And we definitely don't have any instruments in the ground or in the water which are telling us what's actually happening there, and that could be the place where everything could be happening right now. So it's a very important place, and it doesn't, it's not being observed right now. And it's very difficult to get to, which is probably why we're not watching it. A lot of research has been done in this corner here because this is where the biggest human population in Antarctica is, and it's only about 1,000 people if it's really, really humming. So this is, because of its isolation, it's kind of been ignored, but there are so many tricky things to drive around and on the way there that it's difficult. So there's a group of scientists that drilled on the island, Roosevelt Island, and they had a runway on the top of it. That was manageable, but that's solid. But once you get off that island, then you've got a moving ice shelf that's doing all kinds of things, and it's a nasty place to get to. So that's where I would go. A convoy of lots of vehicles moving a lot of equipment. So one of the big things is we would drill through the ice shelf using a hot water drilling system, and by hot water drilling system it's a diesel powered water jet basically, and so you need lots of diesel, lots of electricity to run the diesel generators, or you've got the diesel that run the electric generators which then run the whole system. You need tons and tons of diesel, and that's not efficient to fly. Your average shirt can only carry a few tons, and we went through 19 tons of diesel during the last season. So, and that was just to make a hole in the ice shelf. So it's more the fact that when you drag stuff along the ground, you can move more equipment. So a cool picture or not? Full screen. So this is it's not amazing quality. This is the Ross Ice Shelf, which is vast, to say the least. And this is what I thought, your future convoy could look like, right?
Yeah.
These are vehicles that Antarctica New Zealand just bought. That's one of the big ski field groomers, prepares the ski field for you. And each one of those is towing all of that equipment, right? So that's what your cargo train could look like. And even that though, even on the simplest way, you could have your the auto stopping system would just drop the name now in my head.
Backseat driver.
Backseat driver, there you go, yes. The backseat driver here with the humans that are being followed by your other vehicles that are just dragging everything along. Because right now there are 2 people or 3 people per vehicle right there.
Yeah.
Just to keep the thing moving, right? So this is already looking like, between 8 and 10 people.
Wow.
So if you can have backseat driver plus 2 and then automated cargo dragging system behind, life is already a lot easier and a lot more efficient. But I was just thinking of that because this just shows you how big it is. And the thing is, on this road, we know that there's nothing there because it's a well-travelled route, but the rest of the Ross Ice Shelf looks more or less like that. And there are many things in there to fall into.
So you would feel comfortable switching on an autopilot in this?
And having a nap?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We promise not to send notifications to your.
Yeah. Have you checked the batteries in your crevasse detector? Or software update coming through. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I don't think you can't really sleep in these vehicles anyway when they're on the move. Oh, you do eventually get so exhausted that you do fall asleep. But that's part of the thing, right? These people are getting tired.
Can you? I mean, is it a huge engineering task to make it comfortable that you could sleep in it?
Oh, I think eventually you do end up having a nap because you
Yeah.
get tired, because you get kind of jet lagged as you're doing the work.
Yeah.
And so that's where I thought each one of the things you proposed, each has a very different strength, and they can see an application to what you proposed. And the backseat driver is definitely for when you're getting to that tired edge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, last time we traversed, sometimes we started at 2 in the morning because we were, snowed in. And then we just started driving, but that's not ideal conditions when you've had broken sleep for the last few days, and then you start driving in the middle of the night /day.